Alright guys, one of the most frequent questions that I receive is when's the next stream? When are you going to do another stream? So it seems like people like them, so here we are. Today, I am going to show you how to do on any Falcon or Jasper console a Matrix V1 RGH 1.2 installation, very inexpensive glitch chip, and get really great boot times. I'm going to use my Nand-X, I'm going to use this Kynar or wrapping wire, I'm going to use some other little tidbits of wire, and that's about all the ingredients that I'll need besides soldering and soldering supplies. So hang out and we'll walk through this. Alright, so we know what the key tools that we're going to use are. We're going to use the Nand-X to read and write the NAND on board on the system. We're going to use this as our glitch chip, obviously. This is just my preferred method of wiring on the RGH 1.2 installs. I do this even on my Rev C install. And speaking of which, the Cool Runner Rev C videos that I've done RGH 1.2, this is going to be very, very similar to them. And I'll get the big difference out of the way early. If you take a look at the Matrix and you look at the way the lettering of the pads corresponds to its actual functionality, it's significantly different than the Rev C lettering to functionality. So what I mean is, here you have A is RST, but on the Rev C, the team executor numbering or lettering that everybody's used to, RST is actually D. And then post is B on the Matrix glitcher, but on the Rev C, post is actually point C here. So I'll leave this, actually if you're following along on the video later on this one, screenshot this right now as I'm talking, grab this as a reference image. Otherwise, I'll refer back to it again at some point additionally. But this image is really the only thing that you need to know that's different about this install versus my previous Rev C videos. But let's get started anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do, just to kind of be annoying, is mount my glitch chip, even though I'm not going to wire to it for a moment. So I'm just going to use a little loop of electrical tape, actually. Nothing fancy. I'll just create a little loop and pop it on there. And I'm going to make sure that the pins are hanging off the side of the AV so that they don't accidentally make contact there. I don't think it's real likely, but that is they are metal on the underside as well, so you don't want them like grounding out. That would be no bueno. Alright, so the next step, I'm going to use a fiberglass scratch pen to freshen up the surface of the headers that we're going to solder to. So the after on that, much shinier contact all around. So here's one where we'll capture the before up close here. And the after, everything's nice and shiny, much more readily accept a solder connection. I don't think I have chat. Oh, you know what? I do have chat disabled. Here, let me turn it on. I've got it rate limited because that helps me be able to keep up and not feel like I'm ignoring people. But I didn't realize I had it disabled entirely. Sorry, guys. It should be on now if anybody cares. Alright, so what I've just done as I was talking about my mistake with the chat is applied a little bit of flex paste. And then now I'm going to go ahead and fire up my soldering iron and pre-tin those spots. I'm also going to figure out where my NAND wires are here. There we go. Alright, so soldering iron's getting hot here. Sorry for the little shaky cam. Alright, so just run my iron through the solder just to kind of distribute it. And then I use a pretty hot iron, so I don't really need to hold contact for very long. I basically just want to form a ball around the areas under that we're going to be making our NAND wire connections to. So I realized I didn't have JRunner started. I hope that didn't just totally hose things up. Oh, I'm not going to do this off camera. I'll wait. Well, I don't really know if the camera's on right now. Alright, things came back on. Alright, so what I'm pulling up here is on the Nand-X, or the JRunner software application. If you go to Images, you go to Nand-X Fat Install, you get the reference image for what I'm doing right now. So, remove this. So right now what we're doing is these set of connections, we're just pre-tinning them so that we can install our NAND header to it. So I need to get the last one. This one is ground. It sometimes does require a little bit more heat held to it for a while. Alright, so the next connections that we're going to do are the ones across this header. And then to refer back to the reference image for you, that would be this part. So these two. These are the other two, and then actually this connection right here, I'm going to go ahead and pre-tin because this is 3 volt, and then this connection right here, I'm going to go ahead and pre-tin because that is actually ground. Although, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to ground this to the AV shield, so disregard that part. So I'm going to do 6 and 7 as labeled, and then on this side right here, I'm going to do the 3 volt point for power for the glitch chip. Alright, so back to actually doing it. After having done, you know, lots and lots of these, the way I kind of think of it is just the 4, and then you just pick up the next 2. So I kind of feel like I'm skipping 4, and then this is the power, 3 volt 3. Alright, so the first thing that I will do is use my NAND wires. So this is what has this connector on the end that plugs into the Nand-X. It's also the same connector on the JR programmer. So if you use either one of those, this install is exactly the same. So we'll go back to that first set of reference image. You can rewind and get back to there because I'm going to show you the actual install. So black is 0.1 here. And the reason my wires just look different is I've heat shrinked and installed a little metal pin header bit on the end to make them a bit more durable and reusable. Because I do, I don't know, 100 consoles a month or something. Well, that's probably an exaggeration. 100 a month would be probably 25 a month, I guess, lately. Sometimes. There was a time that it was 100 a month, for sure. Alright, so yellow will be our last point here, 0.5, which is that one that I said is ground and can take some additional heat. Alright. So, let's see if we can get you any different angle view on that. Yeah, so everything's not touching. There's nice little ball of solder on everything. It's all handy there. I mean, you just end up removing those in the end, and so it's not critical that they're absolutely perfect right off the bat here. Alright, so now we're doing the top points that were 6 and 7. So green being the very top one, and then blue being the closer one in the image as it appears currently. Hola, Wizard. Hey, what's up, dudes? Thanks for watching the live stream. Alright, so we got those connected, and I noticed that I bumped that, so I can just kind of reheat it to tap it back down. So the next step, or the next logical step for most folks, is going to be to connect standby power to the console. So plug in just power, don't actually turn it on. Plug in your Nand-X, right? Here we go. Don't need the programmer bar just yet. So my Nand-X plugged into the console, which has back here standby power, and then if we pop back over to the desktop here, picture viewer is up. Alright, so JRunner here in the foreground. We can actually just do a real quick test. Hit that query button. We get a flash config, Falcon Opus, so we know that we've recognized un saludo desde Colombia. Un saludo desde Colorado de los Estados Unidos. Turn off slow mode, please. Stream options. I have optimized for interaction. Oh, you mean turn off slow chat. I guess there's nobody else chatting. That's cool. Enable slow mode. Alright, we'll take it off. Okay, so we hit the query button. We got a good result, so we're going to make sure our NAND reads are on 2. And then we're going to say read NAND. The input name, I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to get to started reading the NAND. And this is where it gets boring for a few minutes while it just goes through and reads the NAND. Usually during this time, and I was doing my own, I would do the LEDs right now, but I guess I could. Okay. You're supposed to get 2 360 consoles, but your PayPal got limited with $143 in it. I'm sorry to hear that. Just to be clear, folks, he is not talking about any deal that he had with me. I don't use PayPal at all, ever, period, the end. So, definitely wasn't any interaction with me. Alright, so I just removed an LED and didn't switch the camera back over. So what I have set up here is I use this little empty tape ring to put the uneven LED on so that it sits level. And what I did just now was I floated off that LED. So what I'll do is repeat that technique, as I would have anyway, a number more times as I rotate this thing around. So the technique literally is just float, right? So you just add enough solder that it just kind of floats off on a bed of it, and then you can clean up afterwards. There we go. So like this one, it didn't stick to my iron. I didn't really fight it, because you can come back and pick it up. If you try to mess with it a whole lot when it's real hot, sometimes you just end up, scarring the board a little bit. So that was an indication our first NAND read had completed. So we all know that it swaps over to the second NAND read now. And then once it gets done with those two, it will run a checksum between them and compare them to make sure they're the same. And only once they're the same do we actually have a successful read. Alright, so there's all the outer ones here. And then there's the center LED removed. So while you watch JRunner here, I'm going to pull up the reference image for the LEDs just to be educational about it. Oh, you know what? I shut down the the home server before I started this to decrease latency. Fat ring of light, LED polarity. I'm literally Googling the image that I'm going to show you. That's how prepared I am. But where did I get it from? But on the internet somewhere. And sure enough, here's the exact image that I want to show you. Save image. There we go. So this image can seem overwhelming, but in reality, it's just a positive and negative. The weird thing about the fat ring of lights were that they were switched on their negative terminal. So they always had a constant power supply or positive voltage supplied, and they would switch the negative to the green or the red, and that would determine which color was active, because it was a multicolored diode. So what we do is we replace the multi-color with a single color 0603 SMD LED, right? So because we do that, and of course this guy picked orange, so he's going to embarrass me, because this is one of the ones where the polarity markings on the LED are sometimes funky. Alright, so let me get back so I can see the chat. Hey bro, what's up, Bryce Mods? So let's go to the Adjust-A-Cam here. The idea is we will place our single LED across 1/2 of a 3-pad setup, and then we'll actually bridge the remaining pad onto the middle one, so that if either the error code negative switches on or the main light switches on, the LED will activate. And on the back of each LED, which is going to be impossible for me to get on camera, on the back of each LED there is actually a marking indicating polarity. And these really, these Chinese LEDs are sometimes weird, and this one has, I think, the reverse marking of typical polarity on it. So I think, well, you know what I should do? Let me just pull out the multimeter, and then I can show you guys how to test for polarity as well. Ring of light LEDs. We're doing an entire RGH 1.2. So I have this multimeter out, and I've set it to, this is the important symbol that you want to look for, the diode testing symbol. And then I'm going to take my LED probes, or my probes here, and touch opposite sides. Alright, I'll actually just rotate the LED. So there it's illuminating, so I know the polarity is positive on the left side as it sits right now, negative on the right side. So then, if I pick it up, and I just keep that in mind, negative is indicated on the same side as the marking on this one. So that is kind of abnormal. So the way that I'll install this first one is the negative to the center pad. And I just did that off camera. Crap, sorry. Soy Wizard. Bueno, good job, Wizard. I speak a little bit of Spanish because I spent a couple of years living in Mexico when I was a teenager, or at the end of being a teenager. So, in theory, or in reality, because we tested it, that is how you line that one out. So it will actually illuminate whether there's an error code or there is a standard, call for the LED to be active. Alright, so it's on the same side as negative. So this one's going to go this way again. So again, I'm just looking at the polarity on the LED itself. which is so small I can't really point it out to you, and then installing them. I'm doing a really poor job on this one. Yeah, really poor. My hand's being a little shaky. Crumb bumps. Well, I might have just toasted that LED by playing with it too much. Good thing they come in rolls of a few hundred for a couple of bucks off of eBay, huh? There we go. So we'll take this big ball off of there. Do it regular. No big deal. ¿Cuándo saldrá chip de Xbox One? No sé, Alejo. Alejo? Is that how you say it? No hay ninguna información acerca de algún chip de Xbox One. Ya no sé nada. Today in Spanish class, we were playing bingo. You were first to get bingo. I said Bing, and she said there are too many scribbles. You said Bing? Okay. It's really cool there's still an interest in the 360. Hey, what's up, Xbox Modder? Sorry, I almost saw your thing scroll by without seeing it. I'm just poorly installing the, or not poorly installing, but poorly performing the installation. Hablan español parceros? I don't know what that means. Sorry. So here we go. Let me move the camera up a little bit. I think today in Spanish class is the modern equivalent of one time at band camp. That's the vibe I'm getting, guys. Don't be weird. Alright, line. I'm not going to be surprised if half these LEDs don't work when I'm done. He said you and him had competition because you sold some of the same thing he is. Yeah, I'm aware of Moon River. Moon River sells good stuff. I've bought stuff from him on eBay before. I don't think that there's anything wrong with his stuff. I think he probably uses either the same supplier in China that I do, or the guy next door, depending on how it goes. That's cool. I don't think I've ever messaged back and forth with the guy, but I don't know. I don't feel like I know him. It's cool that he knows I exist, because he seems like he does pretty good on eBay. I don't know if I just did that on camera or not. I'm a little bit drunk. Sorry. Yeah, anybody can do. So let me just blab a little bit for a second. Anybody can resell at the prices that I resell and get at the prices that I get and below, if you're just willing to buy quantity from China. But that also means, in most cases, on random little stuff, you wait, and on other things, like Xbox supplies, you can get pretty quickly, but then you pay substantial shipping fees and stuff like that. So it's not rocket science. All right. So let's go to the glitch chip now. We've got good NAND reads. So I'll show you the lower left of this up. They verified we got NANDs are the same, so we're happy about that. You go to GameStop one time and they did XComp modules replaced with the regular XComps. Cool. So the image that we kind of care about right now is what we're going to use here. And the thing that you can take away for the moment is that D and E are going to remain unused. And again, this video could be substituted one for one with the Cool Runner Rev C, and just using the same point labeling, not going by the letters, but going by the function of the thing. So, right away I'm just going to go ahead and tin every pad on there except for D and E. Feels weird to skip 2 and just leave a lonely one on the end there. Alright, so first couple of things I like to get out of the way are just power and ground, because they're super easy. So for ground on fats like this, you could totally use the point on the header. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just so accustomed and so programmed from Team Executor tutorials back in the day and stuff to always ground off to the AV shield, but that's just kind of what I prefer now. I don't know that I can offer a great justification. Don't I get a headache doing this 24/7? Oh yeah. Mostly the third time that the impatient 12-year-old emails me wanting to know where his console is when it actually just arrived for send-in service a day and a half ago, and there's a queue. Those times I get a little frustrated, but the work itself I like. It's repetitive. Good question. Yeah, and you make decent money out of it. That's the hardest thing. I actually got a pretty good pay bump at my most recent day job promotion. Big enough that I could totally quit modding and it would be fine. But here I am still doing it because evidently I like you guys. And I think you like me, hopefully. For the most part, there's some miscellaneous haters out there, but what can you do? Everybody has them, I guess. Oh, what's up? JXD Illis, Ty Creighton. Thanks for your business if you guys send in services or whatever. Hi, your French viewers. What's up, French viewers? That's really cool. Enjoy your videos. Also the tools. You need RGH consoles. You even bought a Nand-X for me. Thanks, Spade. Don't quit. Consoles are cool. Yeah, absolutely. Did I ever have problems with Microsoft? No. Yeah, no. I mean, if Microsoft came knocking, in all reality, I would just fold immediately. If there was any way they would let me just quit and not have a legal fight with them, I totally would pussy out in that way. It's just not worth any risk to my real life assets and stuff. So the point that we're going to install first is the first point that I always do on an RGH 1.2 install. It's actually going to go to the labeled point B on the chip, which is the post point, and it's going to go right here, right at the end of that tip. But the way that it's going to route is it's going to come through this hole, route it up this way, and hit that point. So the first thing I'm actually going to do what is business dealing with 12-year-olds that have no concept of how to do business? How old is everyone? I am 32, something like that. I'm pretty sure that's right, 32. I think I'll be 33 this year. I don't know. I was born in 1985. Somebody can do the math if they care. Yeah, I try to keep that in mind, is that for a lot of kids, this is like their first transaction, right? People are only still into 360 modding because it's cheap, right? It's cheap and it can be fun. So if I'm going to be a total douchebag to people that contact me right off the bat, then I probably shouldn't be in this. So I try to keep it reasonable. I try really hard to have everything written out, super in-depth on my website. So I definitely get short with people when they contact me about stuff that's clearly answered on the website, because it feels like it insults all the effort that goes into documenting it as thoroughly. But even recently, I've tried to take a different approach and say something at least slightly constructive, like, hey, that's documented on my send-in service site. Did you see that? Or is there some way I can reword it to make it more clear? So I try to help it make it so, because maybe, and in a couple times it's happened, people have been able to point out, like a valid, better way to explain something, and I'll absolutely update the website and take advantage of somebody's recommendation. My job is hard as hell. No. All right, so what we're doing, what I just did, just to point out, is I anchored that to point B here on the chip. I routed it straight across, down, straight out to the heatsink, back over, and then from the bottom side, I'm actually giving this a slight tug, pulling that, and yeah, there you go. So top side again, we're going up to this point, so what I'm doing is just kind of measuring the length. I'm going to cut it 2, and I'm going to go ahead and strip the end and get it actually connected. Other than me, how do I think the most reliable console sellers are? How do I think they are? The reliable ones are good. I'm assuming you're saying who, but I don't really feel like I need to name names. The big names in the scene can be found all over the internet very easily. It's not that I don't want to mention names. I just don't want to mention some names and forget people, or try to show any favoritism. I don't have any partnerships with anybody really. Although that's not a little bit true. There is one name I'll drop because, in my opinion, this guy's deserved it, and we do have a little bit of, calling it a partnership is probably a stretch, but we've got a deal in progress for something cool. So the modshop.co, I think he has a sticky over at 7 cents maybe. I should have done more research before mentioning him. Anyway, he's element 18592. Let me say the right numbers. And this will be cool. This will be a neat sneak peek to put in a live stream. You guys will dig this. So here, I'll show you the brick of them, actually. You'll think this is cool. So here's the big reveal. This is the thing up here. Let me set this to the side. I'm totally supposed to be doing that as a live stream right now, but so I have 3 bricks like this. You see? I think people have figured out what they are yet. So this is the SD Tool version 2.1 Weekend Modder Edition, and it's just the Weekend Modder Edition. I didn't design this thing. I can't take any credit for it. It's Elements. His information is on here too, right? Elements. It was just printed on the thing I was showing you guys, and then I went and dropped it like a dumbass. Sorry. Element 18592. That's definitely his username over at 7 cents. And then here's the mod shop, the modshop.co. I think this guy is pretty awesome because he designed this, sent it out to the Chinese fabricator. I paid for it. And we've got a batch of these that I'm going to start reselling on the website real soon. As you can see, the PCB is unpopulated currently. There's an opening for 2 resistors and an LED. So those components are on the way from China to me. And I expect to have them within the next week or so. And then I will have these available for sale on store.weekendmodder.com. And if you want to pick one up, these things, I have one I think I got from Mod Shop when he was first done with the design and it was like finalized. So this one has RGH. You can see the wear marks on the pin pads here for the SD. So I'm easily 100, probably 300 4 gig Corona consoles with a nice breakaway on the crystal cable to make connecting and disconnecting easy. I'm not quite sure yet if we're going to sell with wires or if we're going to sell blank and let people. We're going to gun for about $10 a pop on these. And I'm going to do my best to make that 10-ish shipped. It might be a little bit over that, but I'm going to try to go for, if all you want is one of these, that I can do it pretty close to $10 shipped. So these will be available in the next 2 weeks, hopefully. So there you go. This is a cool little surprise. People got me off on a tangent and want me to mention a name, and there's one name I can mention with the utmost confidence for sure. There's lots of other really good sellers out there. Don't get me wrong. But that one's especially important to me right now because it's a cool little thing that we had done and are doing together, whatever. All right, so C point is connected there. Or C point. See, look, I even think about post and C as the same thing. That's the whole team executor mechanism. But on this matrix, the post point is actually labeled B. So I just put a little tiny bit of glue just to make sure if somebody yanks on that cable from the other side that we don't end up with a ripped pad. Bulk pin headers for the Maximus NAND reader. No. I don't have a bulk reseller on those. I order them from DigiKey. So if you just look up that style of pin header on DigiKey, you can. They're just an electronic component reseller. That's just a standard type of NAND pin, or not NAND pin, but empty pin. All right. So what I'm feeding through now will actually eventually be the PLL point. It's going to go to right over here. On a Rev C, the PLL is A. On the matrix, the PLL is actually F. So there's a hole that you guys probably can't see from where I have you angled right now, right there, that I'm attempting to fish this through and then push it through with the tweezers so that it will pop up on the other side and we can use identical routing to the first one to get it over to the chip. So it's feeding through now. So now I should be able to type pin header in AliExpress. Yeah, there's another good one. They'll resell them to you too. I just keep them on the site because I sell the tools, and I can get them with the tool pretty cheap. All right, so this one I said PLL is point F here. So there we go, point F to that wire. And then, so you see how at this point, with the way that I've done things, the wire is connected all the way back to the spool still. This is what allows me to do it with zero waste on the wire side of things. So now what I'm doing is taking that point F and just tucking it so that it runs the exact same path as the earlier wire. And then I'll use just another little tiny bit of glue. It's more than I like, but whatever. It's not going to hurt anything. It's non-conductive and it's super easily removed. Do give away one of those Corona NAND readers this stream. That seems pretty demanding. Maybe suggest, hey, would you ever think about Tengo la camisa negro porque I have a black shirt because I have a soul. because black has the soul. Alama. Alright, so here we go. We'll pull this tight so that it recedes up next to the heatsink, and then we'll flip this thing over. So now we have the I hope I'm saying that right. It looks like DeVarious Gaming. This is your console. I texted him right before I started, and he didn't have any other warning. Alright, so the point that we're going to here, let me get nice and close and point it out. See if we get the camera to focus. So the point that we'll be soldering to is right there. So that little interior right above this resistor, and then we'll anchor it down. And then the final point that will, so that's PLL, and then right over here, this side of this 2-pad set, that's RST. So we'll get that too. Why the matrix glitcher? Matrix glitchers are super cheap. They're super reliable because they're super simple. So that's why. And I don't have a tutorial video on that, so the specific reason tonight is to make this video. And this thing's being difficult about stripping with my auto stripper tool, so I'm gonna do it by hand, kinda. Alright, so on this one, I'm live streaming this, just so you know, honey.
Oh.
So, you won't say anything inappropriate? Everyone misses the weekend modder. There are 22 people watching live right now. I know, it's pretty cool.
Good job.
Was your hard drive good and working? I didn't thoroughly test it. I mean, not to call you out on the stream, but you've already shown up and claimed this is yours publicly, so that's on you, I guess. You packed this thing with absolutely no padding, bro. You didn't have one piece of bubble wrap in the whole container. So if the hard drive is toast, I mean, we'll find out when we go to load the software. I'd say I'm 75% done with this, so I'll come find you when I'm done. All right. What kind of solder do I have? I saw that question. That's 60-40-10 lead. What's called rosin core solder. Let me see if I can show you guys that up close. So that's a little bit longer of a lead than I like, but I'm real comfortable with the fact that there's nothing else underneath that area for it to accidentally short out to. So it's nice connection. How do I test hard drives? I just test them for functionality within the console. I don't do a whole ton of pre-testing on consoles. I pre-boot them to make sure that they're not like red ring when they get here. Because even now, I think a few people still feel like they're going to be real smart, and they send in a console and it's already red ringed when it gets here. Like the first time I plug it in, I boot it up and it's red ringed. So I don't do anything to it at that point. I wait and I call the person up and I tell them that you know, they sent in their console with no padding, and or even if it was padded well but the console's red ringed, if that was not the case before it got to me, then they should file an insurance claim, and if it was already the case when they sent it, then I caught them and they're done, you know. I'm not trying to pick on you for sending it with no padding, you know, absolutely. If it got there, or if it gets here, it gets here, and it's still booted, so we're still doing it. Alright, so with this wiring, this point that we just soldered to is the RST point. The positioning that I use on the wiring for that is to run straight over at the bottom of the X clamps and then actually come around the corner of the motherboard near the fan. So, come on, little hot glue Harry. So we come right to there. So I'll place it right on the corner. Just a tiny little bit. Just enough to keep it in place. And then just tuck it right around. Alright, so that point we said is RST, which for the matrix glitcher is actually going to be A. So linked it out to A. You only paid $20 for this console? That's a pretty good deal. I don't know if the disk drive worked either, but at $20 it probably doesn't really matter to you if you're having RGH. Yeah, at some point I figure my send-in service is going to become worthless when why would you spend $75 having a console RGH'd when you only paid $10 for the console because that's all I use 360 cost. I don't know. All right. So the last point that we have to connect is the CLK. Now, a lot of Team Executor tutorials use the CLK point that's right up here. I think that that one's exceptionally fragile. I can use it personally with no problems, but I've seen far too many a motherboard permanently damaged by first-timers trying to do that. So there is a alternative point, which is just massively easier. So I absolutely will only use that one in tutorial videos for people who might be doing this for the first time. So in relationship to the left X clamp, the lower left leg, come over and then find this FT2R2 point that's circled in white right there. That point that's got nothing around it, it's nice and flat, easy to get to. So that is the actual CLK, which is point B on a Cool Runner or point C on the matrix that we're using today. And then for this one, for whatever reason, it's been my experience that it makes absolutely no difference if you use Kynar on that. So I just use whatever little scrap bit of standard wiring that I have left over from years and years of these installs. So in this particular case, I'm just going to use this thicker, like 30 AWG. Happens to be blue, but there's no particular reason. So kind of pretend the spot. There we go. Man, did my hot glue gun go off? Yeah, that's what happened. It timed out. It's on a timer switch. That must be timed in. So we'll feed that one through the top through one of these 4 holes here. I'm just going to reach to the other side and kind of pull it taut-ish. Alright. So I like to Pico Neo, try reflashing the hex file to your JR programmer. Usually those can be a little flaky, and sometimes reflashing the programmer's own firmware to it can resolve it. But otherwise, yeah, it's totally possible you got a bad programmer. I can't say without seeing photos and having messed with the console. Depending on how frustrated you are, the easiest solution might be, if you're so convinced your soldering is immaculate, either buy a different programmer, another JR, or buy something like a Nand-X, which would use the exact same header cable. So So again, the point that we just connected to was the alternative CLK point, point B on a cool runner, or point C on this matrix glitcher, because, well, that's because that's the point they use. I don't know why. I didn't design the board. Alright, so that's done. I'll tuck this under here. So we have our chip installed now. How do you accidentally buy an RGH? Yo, Aaron, you should put that option on your website where you accidentally buy a JTAG and need an RGH. Yeah, I'm there. We've talked about this. This is one of those times where repeating myself is not fun. I told you when I sent you the link to the video, which now I'm doing a live stream, I guess it's different, but I will add an option for you to pay the upgrade. Devarius unfortunately misidentified. He thought his console was JTAGable in its current state, but it was on a much too new dashboard. So he just needs to pay the difference between the basic JTAG service and the RGH service. That's all. No big deal. So he's just asking me to go ahead and get that posted to the site. I've told him that I will, and I definitely will. So that'll be out there soon enough. Has it happened before? To be honest, every time that I see a JTAG order come through the store, I generally assume that it's somebody that doesn't know what dashboard they have. And then I'm pleasantly surprised when they actually show up and are really on that dash. It's pretty cool. But most of the time, it's actually what happens to you. And sometimes people are so shocked and surprised they think I'm trying to pull something on them by telling them, no, you have a non-JTAGable dashboard, therefore your only option is RGH. I've had people just request me to send them back, so that's fine too. So what I'm doing here is a slim fat, you can see written on there, the side that points towards fat, because this is a fat console. I'm just bridging those two pads. I should have done that earlier, but that's just one of the settings for the console for this configuration, is you bridge the pads that say fat because you're installing it in the fat. And then I'm going to use my Nand-X here and that little programmer that you saw me, or the little side piece you saw me pull out earlier. I'm going to find my little piece of pin header here. Alright, so this little piece of pin header make things way easier. Stick it into the end of it, and then you can actually just make contact with your chip in order to program it. So VCC to VCC as it's labeled. And then I'm just holding a little bit of pressure to the side on it. I'm going to go back into JRunner. I'm going to go to Advanced Custom, XSVF, and for the timing files here, I'm using the RGH 1.2, which is this file, the _21 XSVF file. So I just go ahead, well, my hard drive's building up, there it goes. Output, done. I usually do it twice just for giggles. 360s on JTAGable Dash cost more than Xbox Ones. You are totally right. Yo, Weekend, what happened to Johnny Guns? I didn't have any sort of relationship with Johnny Guns, so I don't know. He and I mean, I saw his forum post. I kind of hung out and around Team Executor in the same era as he did, but I don't have any relationship with him to know what happened to him. You thought 1.2 made those irrelevant? In my opinion, they absolutely have. Functionally, they absolutely have. There is no reason today to prefer a JTAG console. No legitimate reason, really, to prefer a JTAG console over an RGH 1.2 console that's properly done with good boot times. There really just isn't, because a JTAG is not really any faster. All of the same tools that work on one work on the other. Like I really can't give you a benefit that a traditional JTAG is going to have. So I just realized after installing the glitch chip, program the glitch chip, the next process is actually to write the ECC file to the NAND and boot Zell. So what I'm doing here is plugging in the Nand-X back to the pin header and applying standby power. The console is not on. I'm going to go to the JR Programmer application. I'm going to make sure Glitch 2 is selected because RGH 1.2 uses Glitch 2 images. I'm going to say Create ECC. It is a Falcon. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say Write ECC, and it's going to write those first 50 blocks. How long did I use the CR4? I bought, when the CR4 was first announced, I think Team Executor made a mistake. They posted like 10 for, I think it was 10 for 200 or 10 for 100. It was something crazy. But you could buy this bulk pack as a reseller. They were calling it like a pro installer pack or something. It was a couple $100. And I bought 2 of them, and I never bought any more. They just weren't that much better, and then the Ace came out, which blew it away in price. So anyway, we just wrote the ECC file. So going back to the console, unplugging the NAND, I'm going to do a quick power disconnect, reconnect. I'm going to make sure my HDMI is plugged in. And I'm actually going to go ahead and plug in a network cable because I want to suck in the CPU key over network rather than having to type it out. So I'm going to go ahead and start booting the console. And the orange LED works. That's promising. Alright, so the right 2 I messed up, and I'll have to, because the orientation is weird on them. So there is Zell booting up. Get all the way to the end. So we got .69. So the IP address here down in this section, .69. We say get CPU key, sucks in the CPU key. We can click the glitch 2 again and say create XE build image. I'm actually powering off the console and plugging the Nand-X back in as this is going on screen. So it's just generated the upd flash.bin. So there's the upd flash.bin generated. You can see it under the source here. And then I've got in the physical world here the Nand-X plugged back into the NAND header and power applied, but the console not on. So I'll click Write NAND, and we'll write that final image, which will be the modified dashboard that will get it. You lashed out in Walmart, they sold you a broken charger. If you act so poorly in Walmart that you almost get arrested, okay, that's just weird. So how much harder is an RGH? An RGH is really only a little bit more time consuming because there's a more wire install and there's a glitch chip involved. I do JTAGs cheaper mostly because if people really do have JTAGable consoles, I want them to send them to me because I think it's cool. The RGH you do usually with, or excuse me, the JTAG you do with 2 diodes and a jumper wire, and then you still have to read and write to the NAND. Nadie me entiende. Lo siento, puedes tratar a aprender inglés. Hay mucha información de la internet que puedes leer y aprender mucho si hablas y puedes leer en inglés. Alright, so basically this RGH is complete. Once it's done, I will go ahead and boot it up, basically. Just to prove that it can get the dash. And maybe I'll throw my USB here into it and show you that it can run XEX menu at that point. But yeah, that was the entire install. Even with my annoying voice talking through the whole thing, we're done in an hour, including 2 janky LEDs, which I, again, am blaming on the backwards Chinese labeling on the LED. So sorry. CK Studios, will I be streaming more often? I'd like to, but my job recently changed. I'm going to be going to a 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. situation. So it's not going to leave a whole lot of time for streaming unless I do it during the middle of the day. So what I've just done is disconnected the Nand-X. So Nand-X is no longer plugged in. And then I did a power cycle, and I'm just going to go ahead and perform a final boot for you guys. So just so you can see that it does start up and then go into dashboard at this point. It's going to show off my 2 side LEDs that I have to fix, but that's not a huge deal. And then it is booting up into Dash, and while it does that, so I got this USB that I've got a copy of XEX menu on. I'm just going to go ahead and plug it in to the front so you guys can tell where that's coming from. And then I'll sync a controller too. Crap, I wasn't prepared for this at all. Haha. Alright, so if we go over to games with that USB plugged in now, we see XEX menu. We can launch it. Oh crap. Why is it? Oh, I keep my updates on this too. So I'll say no real fast so we can still launch XEX menu. Do you want to accept the update? No. Okay, we'll say yes. We'll do the dash. So it's doing the avatar update. I keep the avatar update loaded on the USB. Is it possible to go for a single NAND RGH to a dual NAND RGH 360? Yes, it's possible, but it's not recommended. The reason is kind of complicated, but it boils down to if the original NAND for that console is banned, there's no point. You can't run retail side anymore. You have to keep the original KV for the console unbanned and only run the RGH side out of the modded NAND, because that console can only possibly use 1 KV in a retail situation. Could I put case LEDs? I could, but I don't. It's not a service that I offer. Can you dual NAND a 360E Corona motherboard? Yes, it is possible. If it's a 16 megabyte NAND or it's a 4 gig that gets converted to 16 megabytes, it is possible to dual NAND an E-series. Alright, this is taking forever. So, anyways, as you guys can see, it's accepting the update and doing that. I don't really want to interrupt it while it's doing it. It's going to fail and give me a thing about memory at the end anyway. Actually, I'm wondering why it's even attempting it, because it has no storage on board. The avatar update actually shouldn't even prompt in that circuit. Well, it's probably installing the avatar update to the USB itself, which is why it's going so damn slow. So then as soon as yep, that's what it's doing. So then as soon as I start up the hard drive, it's going to not need to reinstall the avatar update on the hard drive. That's what's going on. That is what just happened. So it's just rebooted. It's going to start up into stock dash again here, but it does have the avatar installed now on the USB itself, which is pointless. But the whole point was for me to show you XEX menu. And there you go, XEX menu. There's dash launch. There's freestyle dash. So if I was to browse in here and select that default.xex, we could actually launch freestyle. So there it is, console for Devarius, all modded up. This process would work on any Falcon or Jasper using the same timing file even. And then just remember that depending on the chip you're using, if you're using a Rev C, RST, post, CLK, PLL, ground, and this, don't pay so much attention to the lettering A, B, C, D, E as you do to these sort of images. I don't know if you made a video on 16 meg coronas. I don't think that I have. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sign off and call this video done. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It's really nice. It makes me feel really good. Everybody's super positive all the time. So I really do appreciate it. There are some links in the description if you're interested in buying a Matrix glitcher. I do sell them. I do make a little bit of profit out of it. That's the way that I kind of support the habit of doing this and keeping it going. So if you're interested in supporting that content, I wouldn't mind at all. But otherwise, thanks. Appreciate it. Devarius, your console is all set, and it'll be on its way back out to you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.